Alright guys, how's it going? I am the Crown Clown, and today we are doing What If Deku Was Cobra Part 4. Just a quick little deal though. I'm going to have something set up with you guys. So, if you guys want Cobra every day, get me 90 likes on this video before the end of the day, and I'll start doing Cobra videos every day. Which means, on days where Sabretooth is scheduled, you guys will be getting two videos, a Sabretooth and a Cobra. So, with that out of the way, let's get right into this quick recap. But before we do, I just gotta know, are you guys subscribed? If you're not, and you're watching this video, go ahead, drop down there, subscribe. It's free, so I mean, why not? And you guys will get all my future content, which something super special coming up here pretty soon. So, let's get right into this recap. So, where we last left off, Deku was imprisoned. He was pardoned, but he has his name changed from Cobra Yotsubashi to Cobra Midoriya now. And he's inherited his deceased biological birth parents' money. And so Deku, he's in a very tough predicament because nobody wants him there. Like, nobody cares for him. Aizawa's trying to get him expelled. Nezu doesn't care for him. All Might is kind of trying to do the most he can to cover for him and, say that, give him a chance or anything. But a lot of people just don't want him there. All of his classmates are terrified of him, don't want him there, just want him gone. And Jiro refuses to give his snake back. Like, just, Deku's destroyed. The worst thing is, he's missing a snake. But, hey, he walks up to Jiro because they're about to be doing the hero versus villains, except it's all of Class 1A and Aizawa versus Deku. And if Deku loses the fight, he gets expelled. But he walks up to Jiro and he says, hey, if, I win this fight, I want you to hand Cabellios back over to me. And she says, why? Why should I give you the snake back? And Deku says, you know my past. You know what I went through. Cabellios was the only one there for me. Please. He means a lot to me. He's my only friend. The only one who'll always be there with me, no matter what. Please. I need him. And Jiro says, I'll think about it. And Aizawa says, enough chit-chat. Cobra, go get dressed and meet us out there in the, practice field. And, he goes down there. His hero outfit is basically red pants, a white trench coat, and a black shirt. That's pretty much it. And he's getting ready, and he sees them, like all of Class 1A and Aizawa, getting ready and basically about to charge him. All Might steps in, and he says, Aizawa, what do you think you're doing? You know you're not supposed to be interfering. And Deku stops All Might. He says, it's okay. It's alright. And, All Might's like, are you sure? And Deku looks at him and he says, it's fine. If I lose, I'm expelled, right? We'll keep those rules. If I win, you all need to stop treating me like I'm subhuman. And, Aizawa says, I don't make negotiations with killers. And All Might, he stands there and he says, how hypocritical of you, Aizawa. How many villains have you had to kill? And Aizawa says, but they were villains. And, Deku says, oh, so the self-appointed hero feels like it's hypocritical if I kill people and say, oh, they were villains. But if you kill villains and say, yeah, I killed them, but they were villains, it's all right. Talk about a hypocrite. You know what? You stay in. We'll do this your way. And, he says he's going to oversee this exam. No lethal force shall be used. And everyone's just like, okay. And Deku, he says, one last thing. I just want you guys to know here and now, you all think you're so strong, but I'll tell you right now, I'm stronger than all of you. Because in ancient times, there was one being who rose above all others, who humans submitted to. That was dragons. But there was one type of dragon that reigned above them all, more powerful and fearsome than the Fire Dragon King, had even further heights than the Sky Dragons. And that's what I am, the Poison Dragons. So come at me at your own risk. I'm not even going to hold back. Bring it on. And they're all, kind of scared at this point because he's inviting them. He's ready for it. He says, what's wrong? 1, 2, all at once. It doesn't matter to me. I'll beat you all. And he's, smiling about it. And, they're just like, what is this? And Deku continues and he says, what? All you want to be heroes? Too scared? Oh, I get it. You want to talk big, but you don't know how the real world works. You've never had a fight for your life. You've never been held captive, used as a slave, treated like you weren't worth anything. You've never had to fight for your next meal. You've never had to even fight for a place to sleep. Hell. And you certainly don't know what it's like to fight real villains. People who try their best to kill you. Who won't hold back. Some people who are so much stronger than you. It's terrifying. But guess what? I do. I know it all. And, they're just kind of freaking out. And he doesn't know what's going on. And he says, if you're ready, begin. And Deku charges them with a poison dragon roar, spewing poison out all directions against them. And they're just like, oh shit. He has long ranged attacks. And, Aizawa, he dodges it. Like, he gets right out the way. But he notices most of his students, they just collapsed. And Ida, he ran away and he took as many people with him as possible. But still, like Kirishima just got dropped, like fucking Mineta, Mina, Asui, Momo. Like pretty much the only people that are still up is Uraraka, Todoroki, Bakugo, Aizawa, Kaminari, and Jiro. Those are the only ones still up. And they're having to play it smart because he just leveled the entire playing field. Aizawa tells them to stand back, he'll handle this. As he goes to rush at Deku, he just dodges. He just crossed his arms and just dodging all of Aizawa's attacks. And Jiro, she wants to say something, but she doesn't. Because at the same time, she doesn't want Deku to get expelled. And, Deku, he says, alright, I've had enough of this. Come here, you. And he grabs Aizawa's face and he says, Poison Dragon Grip Strike. As he unleashes poison right in Aizawa's face. And Aizawa feels his body getting heavier. It's numb. But there's a stinging pain inside his body's organs. As he hits the ground and his eyes fade to black, he just looks at him and thinks, what the hell just happened? And he's out. And Bakugo, he just charges, and Deku says, Poison Dragon Guard, as he puts up a poison wall, and Bakugo just bounces right off of it, but the poison affects him and it starts numbing out his arm. So Bakugo has to be very careful from here on out because he knows what that poison will do to him. It'll knock him straight out. But in his mind, he's thinking, it'll kill him. And Deku says, alright, come here. I got something special for you. As he charges and he says, Poison Dragon Twin Fangs. As streams of poison just come up and hit Bakugo and nail him right back to the ground. And the poison itself, created an impact enough to knock Bakugo out. But he's also been poisoned, which means his body goes numb. He can't stand up, and Deku's hearing his poison take effect in all of them, and he's like, yeah, that's a good melody. And Todoroki, he uses his flames, and Deku dodges it, and he uses, Poison Dragon Scales, and it sends out several different poison, like scale-shaped projectiles towards Todoroki. Todoroki uses his eyes, but to his surprise, the poison breaks through his eyes and shatters it. And Deku's like, what? An ice quirk this weak? Please. You couldn't even bounce off a bullet off of that. And so Todoroki gets taken out easy from the poison, since it spreads throughout his body after he gets hit with like 16 of those poison scales, and he collapses from the poison. So pretty much all that's left is just Jiro, Uraraka, and Kaminari. And Kaminari, he's terrified. Jiro is scared, but she notices that he's not trying to attack her. Not at all. He's actually been avoiding hitting her for the majority of this. So he charges straight at, Kaminari, and he says, Poison Dragon, Sharp Horn. And he knocks out Kaminari right then and there. And he looks at Uraraka and he says, I'm not big on hurting girls, so, Poison Dragon, Grip Strike. And he knocks her out right there with the poison. And, he's just alone with Jiro now. And Jiro's like, what? Not gonna try to attack me, poison me? Why am I so special? And, he says, I'm just waiting on an answer. And she's like, answer to what? He says, you know what? Can I have my snake back if I beat you? If not, I'm just going to break into your house and steal him back by force. And she hears that, and she's just like, what makes it matter to you so much about Cabellios? And he's just like, because Cabellios is the only one that understands me. He's been there for me. He's literally the only friend I have. And it hurts when he's not there. There's no one to talk to. I live by myself. I don't even have a bed. I'm sleeping on a couch. I just have a fridge, a stove that doesn't even work properly. Like, you don't get how bad my life sucks. And she says, you should have thought about that before you started killing people. And, he just says, I was trying to protect you. Why don't you understand that? And she's like, I never asked you to. And he says, they were going to kill you. I saved your life. And this is the thanks I get? You hate me? You don't care about my feelings, the pain I've gone through, the hell I've seen, endured, and now you keep my one friend away from me. And she hears him saying all that, and she just says, don't you dare make it seem like I'm the bad guy here. She says, you have to try to understand things from my perspective. He says, well, I can't understand it if you won't tell me. And she says, then listen up. As she blasts him with her heartbeat, he screams out in pain as his ears are hurting. And he realizes he's going to have to knock her out if he doesn't want to lose. And All Might's looking at him and he says, "Do it." And Deku inhales. He says, "I'm sorry." Poison Dragon, roar. And knocks her out right there with the poison. As she falls down, she sees a tear fall from Deku's eyes. She thinks she's just imagining it, though, as she falls unconscious. And Nezu, seeing that Deku was actually affected by sound, hatches a plan. He has President Mike go down there and hit him with a giant sound. And, President Mike says, "What? Why?" And he says, "He's a villain. Who cares why? You're a hero. Do it. He just took out that whole class." And President Mike says, "Even Aizawa?" He says, "Yeah, the teacher was just there. And yet he attacked his teacher. Don't you think that's, reason enough?" And President Mike says, "Well, all right then." And he goes down there, and before Deku can even react to what he's hearing, President Mike just hits him with supersonic yells. And Deku, he's screaming out in pain. His ears start to bleed. As he's just like, why? As he's in so much pain and he's yelling so loud. And he passes out. And All Might says, "What the hell are you doing?" And, President Mike says, "I was told to that he attacked the teacher." And All Might says, "No. Aizawa said that he was taking part in this exam as his opponent. Like, what is wrong with you people?" And, President Mike just, realizing Nezu just lied to him. He says, "I'm sorry, the principal told me." And All Might's enraged. And he's like, "The principal, huh?" And, All Might, he's had enough of this. He's had enough of everyone just treating Deku like trash. He's fed up. He goes marching right into Nezu's office. No smile. He knocks the door down so hard it flies out the window 10 blocks down the street. And everyone's just freaking out when the door crashes in and just hits a fire hydrant. And Nezu's just like, "Oh my, that was school property. That'll be deducted from your paycheck." All Might literally just picks Nezu up by his shirt and he says, "The hell do you think you're doing?" And Nezu says, "What?" He says, "Having a teacher attack a student, one who just finished an exam." And Nezu says, "Don't tell me you're wanting to side with him, All Might. Our number one hero, our shining ray of hope. You want to side with that villain?" And All Might tells him he's not a villain. He had every chance to escape from prison, yet he sat in that cell and waited. He's reformed. He's not a bad person. What you're doing is more villainous than anything he could ever have done. After all, you're not even man enough to face him yourself. All you do is have other people do your dirty work for you. And I've had enough. Oh, and a little secret, he's been adopted by the Prime Minister. And Nezu's eyes go wide as he realizes he just fucked with the son of the Prime Minister now. And that the Prime Minister herself is going to hear about this directly from Deku and All Might. And Nezu's like, "All Might, let's not be hasty here." As All Might just sets Nezu down and walks out. He picks up his phone and he makes a phone call. Within 20 minutes, the Prime Minister is there marching into UA. She's pissed. And she walks right into the infirmary and sees Deku lying there, his ears bleeding. And she's just like, "Who did this?" And President Mike speaks up and says, "That would be me." And she's like, "Who authorized you to brutalize a student. And, he says, I was just following the principal's orders. And she says, bring him to me now. And so she marches straight into Nezu's office and she has him arrested right then and there for carrying out an attempted murder hit against Izuku, well, not Izuku, but Cobra Midoriya. And, Nezu, he's like, what? I didn't try to kill him. And she said, did you or did you not know about his highly advanced hearing and selected a hero that has a loud sound quirk and tell him not to stop until he was on the ground? And, Nezu says, what? I never said those exact words. And, President Mike walks in and says, yes, you did. And Nezu's just like shocked. He's like, who are you going to listen to? The man who actually did the assault or this principal of this fine institution? And she plays the recording from All Might because All Might recorded everything that Nezu said. And Nezu's basically, his eyes go wide and his blood goes cold as Nezu is just speechless. He says, I want a lawyer. And she says, oh, we'll make sure you get one. Take him away. As, this is live on the news now, that the principal of UA just tried to assassinate a student. And, they're just like, what in the hell? And all the other students, they wake up fine. No after effects from the poison whatsoever. Because Deku didn't want to kill him. Like, he could have, but he didn't. He just played himself big and bad. And he's still in the infirmary because his eardrums are busted. And it's going to take a while to heal. But he has to wake up first before Recovery Girl can, recover him, or it could be life-threatening. And, the Prime Minister says to just let him rest. And, one of the students in class 2B, well, not 2B, but 1B heard that, and he's just like, huh, I see. And he smells something. He says, smells like a dragon. Too bad there's already one here. And, Deku, he eventually wakes up, and he's just like, what happened? And Recovery Girl, heals him right then and there, and he gets his hearing back, and he suddenly feels very tired again. And he can suddenly hear everything again, and it's kind of like a shock to him. And he's like, just when I thought I lost my hearing. And, he sees the Prime Minister, and he's like, what are you doing here? And she's just like, you just almost got yourself killed. Why are you so calm? And Deku says, it's not that I'm calm. It's just that I'm too depressed to even do anything. And she's like, why is that? And he tells her, because I don't have my best friend anymore. Cabellios, the only one that was there for me. The only one who understood me. And he's gone. I don't have him. I don't know how I'm supposed to, keep on going when my own best friend's not there for me. I can't talk to him. I can't pet him. We can't just lay there together. And I don't know what to do. The girl who I had him protect just won't give him back. She hates my guts, even though I care about her. She hates me. She doesn't want anything to do with me. She'd probably just be happier if I was gone. And all the rest of the students hate me. They wish I was dead. They'd probably be happy to hear I was almost killed. And, you know, the Prime Minister says, don't worry about it. Things will get better in time. Just don't give up yet. And, Deku's like, easy for you to say. You're not the one having to go through this. And he just turns over and goes back to sleep. And, he just lays there. He sleeps for about like a solid hour or so. Recovery girl wakes him up, tells him to go home. He can't stay here. And, he just asks, could I just lay in this bed, please? I don't have one. And Recovery Girl feels sorry for him. And she says, I'm sorry, but you just can't stay at the school. And I can't allow you to take the bed. And Deku says, I understand. So he gets up and he goes back home. And when he gets there, he notices, like, when he opens the door, Cabellios is there. And he's like, hey, how did you get here? And he just runs over there, hugs this snake, pets him on the head, his tears running down his face. The snake just coils itself around him, and Deku just drops to the floor right there. And he just kind of nearly passes out. But, Jiro, she comes around the corner after she was cleaning up the place a little bit, and she says, oh, you're back, huh? And Deku's like, what are you doing here? And she says, well, as she closes the door, we need to talk. And Deku's like, last time we did that, you used your quirk on me. And she says, and you poisoned me today, but I'm not mad about it. After all, I didn't want you to get expelled. And Deku's like, what do you mean? And she's like, trust me, I wasn't happy that you were almost killed, and I don't want you to be expelled. But I'm mad at you. You lied to me about everything. And she says, I want to know the truth about you. Not from any news sources, not from anyone else, but from you. Tell me everything from your own mouth. And, Cabellios breathes out some poison. Deku eats it, and he starts to feel a little bit better. His strength's coming back to him, and he's like, alright, fine, I'll tell you. And while Deku's having his heart-to-heart with Jiro, the news is going around and just blowing up Nezu being the ringleader of trying to have a student killed. And they're showing Deku's face all over the news. And at a certain bar underground over there, there's a certain man-child with a hand fetish watching the news. And he's like, hey, you think if we had him that we could have power? And, Kirigiri, he's just like, yes, I do think so. And Kurigiri, he tells him, why do you ask? And Shigaraki says, because they tried to have him killed. I don't see any reason for him to become a hero. Maybe we should try to make contact soon. Have him join us. And, Kurigiri tells him, well, he's a UA. He'll be there when we attack. And, Shigaraki says, you sure? The intel good? And, he says, yes, intel is fantastic. And Shigaraki smiles and says, great. And so, back at where Deku and Jiro's at, Jiro just finishes hearing everything. She hugs Deku and she says, "Look, okay, we can't go back to the place that we were before. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of trust, which is not something I have very much of these days. But I'm willing to work at it. But you got to give me 200% effort." And Deku tells her, "All right, I agree." And she says, "If there's ever a chance, like, villains try to recruit you, you turn them down, okay?" And Deku says, "Of course. I'm not making that mistake again. I kicked in with the wrong group, and look where that got me. Hated, nearly killed, and I lost my best friend for a long time. It's good to have you back, buddy." As he pets Corbelio on the head. And she's like, "Oh, not mad about me being mad at you." And, you know, Deku says, "Look, I understand that you're trying to, tell me how you feel, but I already know. I can tell from your heartbeat every time you're around me. It's mixed emotions. You're happy, you're mad, you're terrified. To be honest, I get it, okay? I understand everything, and I know that you thought about telling everybody my weaknesses and my powers, but you didn't. I'm thankful for that." And he says, "But I think it's time you should get going. We'll talk about it another time, but I'm tired. I was nearly killed today. I need my rest." And she says, "Okay." And she gets up. She says, "I'll see you at school tomorrow." And Deku looks at her and he's like, "We got school tomorrow?" And Jiro thinks hard and she's like, "Yeah, they didn't tell us not to come in tomorrow." And Deku says, "All right, I'll see you tomorrow." And, as soon as Jiro leaves, it's a few minutes, Deku's about to pass out. His phone rings. It's All Might. All Might answers and he says, "Oh, good thing I caught you. Just so you know, we won't be having school tomorrow. We need to figure a lot of things out. Having an attempted murder happen on our campus. It's, yeah, it's a lot to kind of recover from. But it's just gonna be like a 3-day delay. So take 3 days off and come back next Monday." And Deku's like, "All right, fine." So, you know, he hangs up the phone and he wonders if Jiro knows. So he texts her all the information. He plugs up his phone and he falls asleep with Cabellios coiled around him. And he actually gets some good sleep that night for the first time in a long time. And, he wakes up and he sees his bank account and it says $600 billion deposited. And he's just like, "You've got to be kidding me." So he says, "Okay, boy, we're getting ourselves a bed." So he goes down and he buys himself a bed. He carries that in, sets it up. He says, "We're getting the stove fixed." So he calls someone in to fix up the stove. He notices the plumbing's out. He has to call a plumber. He's fixing up his house little by little. He's got the money to do it. So he fixes everything up. And, Cabellios is digging it. He's laying on the bed, and Deku's like, "That's not your bed, that's mine." And Cabellios just hisses at him, and he's like, "Fine, it's our bed." And Cabellios just lays his head back down. And, he breathes out some poison. Deku eats it, and he's like, "Thanks for the meal." And, Cabellios, he passes out. So Jiro knocks on the door, and Deku, he already knows who it is. He says, "Come in." It's unlocked. She opens up the door, and she enters. But some people are in the neighborhood. They see Jiro enter, and he's just like, "Hey, you want to go check it out?" And the other guy, he's just like, "What? What about?" And then he takes a sniff of the air, and he's like, "Yeah, let's go." So they knock on the door, and Deku has this smell, and his eyes get real sharp, and Jiro knows that look. And she's like, "What, is it trouble?" And he says, "Could be, but it's hanging around one of our classmates." And they're just like, "What do you mean?" And so Deku opens up the door, and he says, "What do you want?" And it's Kirishima and Tetsu Tetsu. And the reason they met is because they're actually, boxing partners in this What If, because they go to the same boxing gym and work out together. So, yeah. And, you know, Deku's is especially you, one with that white hair and dumb look on your face. And he says, "Hey, now that's some hurtful feelings to have there." And, you know, he says, "I don't give a damn about your feelings." And, Tetsu Tetsu tells him, "Is that another way to talk to a dragon?" And Deku, he's just like, "So you're the Iron Dragon Slayer. The one that Redestro said he was on his payroll. The one Lisa said worked for him." And Tetsu Tetsu says, "I don't know what you're talking about. Never heard of anybody called Redestro. I worked for Yotsubashi once, but that was just an odd summer job. Nothing else." And Deku realizes he was lied to. He says, "Yeah, well, you killed people too, didn't you?" And Tetsu Tetsu says, "Yeah, I was experimented on too. Same as you." And, Deku says, "So, you had a lacrima put inside of you?" And Tetsu Tetsu's like, "What? No, not a lacrima. I had to read these really old texts and try to learn it that way. But it worked, and I became stronger for it." And Deku says, "So there's a way to give quirked peoples the powers of the past." And, Tetsu Tetsu says, "Yeah, there's a way, but you have to have an affinity for it." And he's like, "So I hear." And they're just like, "So you have the lacrima, huh? Shame. You're an artificial, a fake dragon." And Deku, he activates his Dragon Force, which is the scales on his arms, and he says, "Doesn't look fake to me, now does it?" As he shows him the dragon scaled and dragon arms. And Kirishima's freaking out. He's just like, "Whoa, whoa, easy, you two, easy." And Jiro says, "That's enough, Cobra. Just chill out." And Tetsu Tetsu's like, "I just came to say hi. Didn't mean to interrupt your bedtime fun." And that's when Kirishima says, "Wait a minute. You're messing around with this guy? I thought you were, Danky's bitch." And Jiro says, "I am nobody's bitch." And that's when, Deku grabs him by the shirt and says, "You better watch your fucking mouth, you piece of shit. I'm not against putting you in the dirt again." And, Kirishima's just like, "Hey, man, sorry, sorry." And Deku says before he lets him go, "Talk to her like that again, and you'll see what happens when I don't hold back." And he just releases Kirishima and throws him back a bit. And, Tetsu Tetsu says, "We're going to fight one of these days. Sooner or later, we'll figure out who's stronger, the poison dragon or the iron dragon." And Deku looks right at him and he says, "And I will assure you, the poison dragon will overcome the iron." And Tetsu says, or maybe the Iron Dragon kills the poison. And he walks off. And Deku's pissed. And Jiro just says, calm down, calm down. And, you know, Kirishima, he pretty much texts Kaminari that Jiro is having fun with Cobra. And, you know, Kaminari, he's pretty much just like, the fuck? She is. And he calls her up right then and there. And Jiro's just like, oh god, this idiot. And Deku just says, just ignore it. She says, really? Can your ears really allow me to ignore it? You know, you're going to tell me, just answer it eventually. And Deku says, you think I could withstand you and him yelling at each other? Please. So she just turns her phone off and sits there, and she's like, this is getting so complicated. And Deku, he basically just asked, well, do you like the guy or no? And she's like, why do you care? And, you know, Deku's just like, because I care about you. And Jiro realizes that everything Deku's done has just been because he cares about her. But she always thought it was just as a friend and that he was just teasing a little bit. And she's like, wait a minute, you actually care about me like that? And Deku says, I did. Until all this happened. Not so sure anymore. And she's like, look, I never knew you actually felt that way, but it's not something that you just rush into. It's going to take time, and I don't trust you right now. Remember, we're still trying to build back up our friendship, so that is definitely out of the way. And Deku says, yeah, I agree. That is a bit out of the way. And he tells her, look, do what you want. I don't care. Just, you know, do you. And Jiro says, you really don't care if I go out with that guy. Or any other guy. Even if I went to, you know, ask out Tetsu right now. And, you know, Deku kind of flinches at the last one. He's like, leave the Iron Head out of this. And she's like, what is with you and him? And he's just like, it's a dragon's instinct not to like another dragon. And she's just like, oh, so it's just the dragon part of you. And Deku's like, no, it's the human part too. And she's like, why? And he's like, the dude's a tool. Like, literally. And she's just like, I can't believe this. You're just, why are you like this? And Deku's like, why am I like what? It's like, you know what? Never mind. I'm going home. So she goes home. And Deku, he's like looking at Cabellios like, why are these people so fucking annoying? And, you know, he just chills at home with Cabellios for the next couple days. And, you know, it's time to go back to school. They do, and All Might says, alright, so here's the thing. Well, a lot of teachers have been reshuffled. Aizawa is no longer your teacher, and President Mike is put on a suspension for his role that he played, and you will no longer be allowed to throw out, you know, wishing death upon any student. And that includes any ill will towards Cobra. And everyone's just like, we're not going to get along with him just because you guys want us to. All Might says, I didn't say you had to get along. Just be neutral towards him. You don't have to be his friend if you don't want to, but you will show him some decent human respect. Like, come on now. You guys have been treating him like subhuman for a long time. Ever since he got here, you guys have just treated him like he's scum, not even worth, you know, a spot here. Truth is, he got in here on his own skill alone. Not talent, not a random lucky winning of the quirk. No. Talent is what this guy has. He's got skill. He has determination and he's worked at this for all of his life. He hasn't had it easy like all the rest of you people have. He's, you know, knows what it feels like when bad people get a hold of you and they sink their teeth into you. When they turn you into something you're not. When they experiment on you against your will. When they torture you. When they beat you. All of that. He knows it. You guys don't. So perhaps instead of just trying to, assume the worst of him, you guys actually show him some respect and actually, maybe, just maybe, try to get along with him. Because, the sooner you guys do, the sooner you might realize how big of an asset he is. Instead of just trying to, get him killed or suspended or expelled. Come on now. I've had enough of that. But anyway, your new teacher for your homeroom will be Midnight. I hope you guys enjoy her teachings because new teachers are coming in and they're just like, who are all the new teachers? And he says, you'll learn that in time. But for right now, Midnight is your homeroom and hero course teachers. And, Midnight walks in and she's like, well then, hello. And just a quick break right here, but comment down below. Who do you want to replace, Aizawa and President Mike as teachers? And, All Might is the new principal. So that's out there too. So comment 3 heroes you want to take All Might's teacher position, to take Aizawa's teacher position, and to take President Mike's teacher position. And keep in mind, the teachers you pick will also be prominent in the exam later on. So, power's in your hands. Vote down below. Anyway, she says, okay, all of you, change into your hero attire and get ready. We're going to the USJ for training. And all of them do. And she goes on the bus with them. She drives them over there. And Deku says, hold up. She's like, what? And he's like, I have very, sensitive ears. And I hear way too many heartbeats in there. She's like, how many do you hear? And he says, at least 100. She says, that's not supposed to be in there. There's only supposed to be 13. And Deku says, what, 13 heartbeats or what? And she's like, no, the hero, her name is 13. And he's like, oh, well, I hear one at the entrance, but the other ones are all scattered out evenly amongst all of the different zones in there. And she's like, you can tell? And he's like, I can smell it. I can smell the water. I can smell the, mud, the fire, all of it. I can smell it. And she's like, you have a very sensitive, senses, don't you? He's like, it's part of the program. It's a side effect from being a dragon slayer. And she's like, come again? He's like, that's the power I have. It's called Poison Dragon Slayer. And she's like, oh, that's actually pretty useful to know. And she's like, but why would you tell us this? He says, it's a show of trust, not something to be taken lightly. And she says, okay then. So she calls All Might, and All Might says, don't enter whatsoever. He's sending backup. So he sends in, a lot of the heroes that were in there, and they all enter at once. And they're actually having Deku go in there with them. None of the rest of the students are allowed in. 13 says, I wasn't expecting one student and a lot of pros. Is something wrong? And Deku says, people are hiding out in here. And 13's like, what? I assure you know. And Deku says, I can hear them. Their heartbeats, their thoughts, their villains. And just at that time, Shigaraki emerges with Kurogiri, and, they see all these pros, and they're just like, the info was bad. But Shigaraki sees Deku. And the Nomu does step out as well. So Shigaraki's pretty confident. And he starts talking to Deku. He says, what are you doing with heroes? They just tried to have you killed the other day. They don't care about you. They don't want you there. But me? I'd welcome you with open arms. Your power deserves to be used. You deserve to be held at a higher position than what you currently are. These people don't care about you. You're expendable to them. You don't even matter one little bit. And, Deku's like, yeah, I know. I mean less than anything to these people. There's not one of them that would even remotely care about me. And, Shigaraki says, then why stay? Why not join us? Join the League of Villains. And Deku says, because I know that'd be the wrong choice. A weak-ass punk like you? No way you could ever be something strong enough to order me around. I'll become a hero because that means I'm my own boss. Nobody can tell me what to do, and nobody will be controlling me. It's the best way for me to move forward. I won't have to worry about anyone's approval or anything. I'll be set. No one telling me how to do this or what to do that. No one looking over my back or pressuring me. None of that. Plus, I won't have to deal with anyone I don't like. And, he says, then why don't you just quit? Because what you just described isn't a hero. And, Deku just tells him, why don't you just shut your fucking mouth and fight me already? And he jumps down there, and all the villains start coming out of the woodworks. And, Kirigiri, he tells him, should I just warp him with us and take him? And Shigaraki says, no, he's a lost cause. You guys, Nomu, kill them all. If All Might's not here, I don't care. So, him and Kurogiri, warp gate right up out of there, which means 13 is still alright. No damage comes to 13. And, the villains start attacking Deku, and Deku just takes them all down. Like, all the fodder ones, he's taking them down. Nomu, he just rushes at Deku. And Deku, he slams his foot down and stops Nomu in his tracks. And he says, whoa there. No need for you to be in such a hurry. And he yells, Poison Dragon Roar, right in Nomu's face, poisoning him. But he notices Nomu doesn't drop. Not in the slightest. So he's just like, well, that's new. So he decides to use Poison Dragon's Sharp Horn. And Nomu, he's in a crater and poisoned even more, but, he's still getting back up. And this is when Deku kind of gets a hint at what his power could be. And he's like, no way, you got regeneration, don't you? And the Nomu just screeches, it can't talk. And, he's like, I can hear it. You're healing my poison. So if that's the case, I'll just poison you before you can regenerate. And he grabs him in the ground and uses Poison Dragon's Grip Strike. And then he yells out Poison Dragon's Roar again. Then he throws Nomu up in the air, uses Poison Dragon's Scales. And then he yells Poison Dragon's Twin Fang. And then he jumps up there and he slams Nomu so hard into the ground, he creates a hole that goes down 150 meters deep. And Nomu's down there. And before Deku, hits the ground, he does another Poison Dragon's Roar right in there, filling that hole to the brim with deadly poisons. And all they do is just hear the Nomu screeching as it's trapped down there with all that poison. And the Nomu dies down there. After a little bit, they stop hearing the Nomu. And at that time, all of the pro heroes have finished off all the fodder villains. And, the police are there. And they're wondering where that Nomu thing is. And Deku just points down below. And he says, I wouldn't recommend going down there, though. After all, it's a heavy, poisoned area. You would most likely die, considering there's no cure for that type of poison. It's stronger than the most deadliest poison on Earth. And they're just like, and how do you know this? He says, because I'm the one that did it. It's a dragon's poison. So of course it's going to kill things easy. And they're just like, but why did you go that far? We could have got any information out of it. And Deku just tells him, why? I'll tell you why. Because the thing couldn't talk. They're like, what do you mean? He's like, it was incapable of human speech. Like, its thoughts, I could hear it was just going with attack, attack, attack. I couldn't tell what it was going to do. It wasn't thinking. And on top of that, it couldn't speak. So why even bother? He's just got regeneration and, he's dead now. You're not getting anything out of that body. I'm pretty sure the poison's decomposing it right now as we speak. And, Deku just walks out of there and says, I'm done for the day. And nobody argues with him. He goes on home with Cabellios right there with him. And he gets on his bed and he goes to sleep. And that's where I'm going to be leaving it off for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd appreciate if you left a like, comment, subscribe. As always, I've been the Crown Clown, and I will see all you beautiful people again in the next one. Peace.